Greetings to you, internet people. What's going on? Theyliveglasses here. Welcome back to my channel. Good to have you here. So this is just a little quick video. I put together just some clips from a podcast which Joe Rogan did with Gavin Mcinnes a few days ago. I felt like he made some really good points about stuff and talked a lot of sense in this interview, so I kind of cut out a couple of bits just to put in because I think they're cool. So quick intro to Joe Rogan if you don't know who he is. He is a kind of renaissance man in a way. He used to be a mixed martial arts fighter. He now commentates and is kind of an expert on mixed martial arts. He's like a commentator at the UFC. He also does a podcast where he talks to a lot of very interesting different people, scientists, kind of spiritual type people, comedians, actors, all kinds of different far out interesting people, experts on different things, that type of deal. He loves having these long kind of 2-3 hour conversations with people where they get really deep into stuff, and yeah, it's usually always pretty interesting to listen to. So he does this podcast now. He also does stand-up comedy. He's also a proponent of kind of psychedelics and flotation tanks and that kind of thing. And I started listening to his podcast kind of 5-6 years ago now or something. And he was one of the first people I noticed kind of talking about the problem with political correctness as it was affecting comedy, because he's a stand-up. He has a lot of stand-ups on as guests, and they were kind of talking about it. And I was like, oh, you know, this is weird. Why are these college kids not loving the stand-up? When I was at uni, we had a bunch of stand-ups there, and it was really cool. Like, what's the deal with this? And he interviewed John Ronson and a whole bunch of people kind of about these type of topics, and that was when I first started becoming aware of it, really, and the kind of stuff that was going on with the campus censorship and all that type of deal. So yeah, Joe Rogan's a good dude. He looks like a big beefy dude. He's got a very good sense of humor about himself, and the fact that he's quite a alpha male type of guy or something, but he's not like a dick about it. It's hard to explain. He's quite an interesting, complex dude in a lot of ways, and you know, sometimes he rambles on, he talks a bit of rubbish, he gets too high and stuff like that, but like I say, he always has interesting guests on, they have interesting conversations, and there's always some new ideas out there. And you know, he introduced me to stuff like researching about psychedelics and using flotation tanks as a kind of meditative tool, and he's introduced me to like a lot of interesting people. You know, he gives a platform to people like Gad Saad, Jordan Peterson, kind of free speech advocate people, and kind of unusual figures in general. He's like close to 1,000 episodes of the podcast or something now, but if you go through and I don't know, look at the names of the people he interviews, there's probably someone in that you'll find interesting, so check it out. And that's a little bit about Joe Rogan. He's a good guy. Without further ado, here is some clips of Joe Rogan being a good guy and talking a lot of sense. Here we go.
The Milo thing is so odd because, first of all, I think he's got this act, and let's call it an act, because part of it has got to be an act.
He's got a wide spectrum of his personalities.
Yeah.
So on Bill Maher, he can be a raging Liberace queen with pearls on.
Yeah, dressed like a woman. I mean,
dressed like a woman.
Yeah.
Camper than any woman I know.
Yeah.
And then for the apology, he's the conservative with the Coke bottle glasses.
Yeah.
It's sort of like when a Jamaican goes back to Jamaica and they start speaking in patois like their grandmother. You're not necessarily lying. It's
right.
just a wide range of views.
Yeah, he plays it up, and there's definitely a performance piece to a lot of what he does. What's really interesting is he's very good at riling people up. He's obviously very good at getting people upset, and in doing so, he's created these sort of false narratives about him, that he's a Nazi, that he promotes genocide. I mean, there were so many people outside the Berkeley thing that were screaming, calling him a Nazi and saying he's a fascist, when they, in fact, were behaving in very authoritarian fascist ways.
I did a talk at NYU. They pepper sprayed me.
Did they really? When was this?
This was a couple weeks ago.
What was it talk about?
I didn't even have a plan. They know me as pro-Trump or something, and I'm a Nazi because of that, and they don't want to give a platform to free speech. That's the irony of all this, is they pretend that it's gotten so far, it's beyond debate now. In their world, we are recruiting fascists for some sort of imminent genocide. So we're like signing up the brown shirts with a form at our talks. And you go, say that was possible? How does that work? Like, we sign you up, then you're part of the club, then you come with us on the next genocide? The fuck are you talking about? You haven't even played it through in your mind, because for these people, it's a religion. That's why they don't want to debate. It's like a born again. He doesn't want to debate about the existence of God. He's already on that side.
So what was your plan when you went there? What did you want to talk about?
I was going to say, this Nazi that you made Milo and I out to be, who wants genocide and who sees non-whites as inhuman, blah, 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 homophobic, sexist, whatever. First of all, that guy should be allowed to talk if he existed, but he doesn't exist. Your monster is a mythical beast.
Well, in terms of Milo, he definitely doesn't exist. Milo's not a Nazi. He's definitely he's not promoting genocide, and those are two things that just get trumpeted about left and right. Exactly, who is? But Milo has said some very inflammatory things about, and in a very generalizing way, about women and about the wage gap and about all sorts of things that he designs his words and his phrases to be inflammatory, so he gets the most response, and it's been incredibly profitable. I mean, up until HarperCollins pulled his book deal, he had a $250,000 book advance. His book was #1 on Amazon just sheerly through controversy.
Yep.
I mean, through pre-sales and controversy. So it's a strategy in a lot of ways, and it's also a response to this really hard stance that the far left is taking, this anti-free speech stance. The problem is the way they're reacting to it is the absolute wrong way to react to someone who's saying something that you don't agree with.
Oh, yeah.
The right way is to say something that you feel opposes what they're saying and makes more sense, to debate them.
That's the beauty of free speech. Like, it has no limits.
Yeah.
If you want to get out there and deny the Holocaust, you want to get out there and sexualize toddlers, I'll go to your talk. I want to hear it. And then in the Q&A, I'll shoot you down.
Well, I don't think it even should just be a Q&A. I mean, I think it should be real clear. There should be someone, and we shouldn't just rely on the audience to come up with some sort of response. I think if you're going to have someone as controversial as Milo, and you're so opposed to it that you're willing to throw bricks through Starbucks windows and light cop cars on fire, there should be someone that can speak for your side.
Of course.
And then you should organize some sort of a talk. But this is setting it up the wrong way, because you go, it's like someone said to me once, hey man, like we were talking about martial arts. If I was a black belt, I'd fucking kick everybody's ass. I go, no, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. First of all, you wouldn't, because you'd have discipline and you'd realize the consequences of that. But second of all, when you just kick someone's ass, they don't just take it. Like, they come back with a bat or a gun or their brother, or you start a fight, and they want to get it back. And it goes back and forth, and all conflict pretty much goes that way. You have conflict, and then someone responds to that conflict, and it escalates. So if you have this thing where you start throwing bricks through windows and lighting cop cars on fire and stopping people from talking and hitting people that have make Bitcoin great again hats. Did you see that girl who got maced in the face?
By a
you know what
60-year-old.
happens? Eventually, people show up with guns. That's what happens. And this is what happens. When you keep escalating the violence, you become a them, you become the other, you become the enemy, and you create this polarizing atmosphere that's so intense that no dialogue is going to fix it now, because you're the enemy. You're talking about the North versus the South. You're talking about, the Protestants versus the Catholics. You create this horrific environment where it's almost impossible to avoid violence. Sarah Silverman, too, she had this thing. She was advocating. She was saying that once the military steps in, the Mad King will no longer be there. What? Yeah. You do not want the fucking military to run the country ever. Do you understand what that means? If they can kill the president, they can kill you, too. You have to be absolutely out of your fucking mind to want the military to step in and run the country. You are advocating a military dictatorship. Because, by the way, that's what happens when the military comes over. When they take over, you don't get a vote. There's no fucking vote now. That's all gone. The people with the guns are now running things. And they do whatever the fuck they want. And it's very inconvenient for them to have to sit down and listen to people who go to Largo on Tuesday night to watch Sarah Silverman speak. Like, it's very inconvenient for them to take your opinion into consideration. And they're not going to.
Well, the implication there, too, is that she's running it. Like, General Brigadier Judd Apatow is calling out the commanders. We've got General Patton Oswalt.
I just don't think they've thought it through. They haven't thought it through.
They never think it through, because it's just religion. It's all platitudes. It's all mods and rockers made up shit.
What's also, there's a lot of posturing online. When you're making these statements online, you're doing it to not just because you have something to say, which I believe there's something there, but also because you want love. You want people to like what you're saying. You want people to retweet it. You want people to say, hey, that guy is really on the ball. That girl is really on top of politics. Yeah, you go, girl. You're saying the right things. Yeah, fuck him. We got to get him. But they're not thinking this thing out. You had a contest. There's a fucking contest. The person that you had go against the person that you didn't want to win sucked. So the person who won the fucking contest. You can't just come in and say, now the military has to take over because I don't agree with the results of the contest.
Yeah.
We have a country. The country's filled with 350 million people. Enough with your shitty electoral college system decided that this guy should win the contest. He won. He won fucking fair and square. Whether or not the Russians were involved in hacking the DNC, take that aside. Look at it for what it is, because what the Russians exposed was fucking corruption.
And they're obsessed with these emails, and I go, that's not what lost it for her. There was no real smoking guns in those emails. There was what's her name coming with questions for CNN. There was Jake Tapper looking dirty in there.
What did Jake Tapper look dirty from?
It looked like he was getting questions, talking points from the DNC. You may have to pull that shit up.
Yeah, there was also the very clear collusion where they were making sure that Bernie Sanders did not win the primaries.
Right.
That was where it was most disturbing to me, because I was like, okay,
was that leaked through emails?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
so she did something corrupt.
Yeah, she did something corrupt.
Caught.
And they're saying, well, the Republicans didn't get exposed. And well, the implication is the Russians had something on them, but there was a deal. But how do you know that's the case? They might not have done anything illegal. That's also possible. It's possible. It's possible that if you look at the very minimal amount of things that were done by the DNC, there's just a few incidents. None of them landed anybody in jail, right? So I think we can kind of agree that whether or not they're corrupt, they're fairly minimal. Even though you are fucking with democracy. I mean, that's what you're doing when you're rigging the primaries. You're fucking with democracy. No one went to jail. So the worst case scenario that was attributed to them was still not enough to warrant a criminal investigation or jail time. Then you have the other side, and you're supposed to assume that their side was more egregious, or was it equal and just not exposed? Like what? Look at all the shit that was exposed. Look at that Billy Bush interview. You're telling me that's not worse than anything that was exposed on the other side as far as like public opinion?
It seemed to resonate more. I don't know why. It was just a dumb joke, but it seemed to be. That's what that march was. It was a pussy joke
to be
march.
There because the UFC was there in Madison Square Garden right after the election. So I walked to the gym, and when I came back, it was like while we were in the gym, the riots or the parade, the march started. And so we walked back right in the thick of it. And they were parked out in front of the Trump Tower just fucking screaming.
What a bunch of fucking losers. I
Donald
saw them project
Trump, KKK, racist, sexist, anti-gay. This guy just kept screaming that.
Where did that even come from? They did another thing where they first of all, they dance outside of Mike Pence's house. He's not even there. Like he gives a fuck. He never said gays can't dance. And then they just do that in New York. They start making out with each other in front of the Trump building. Like he's going to go, oh, stop it.
Stop it. I'm evil. I can't see
I'm
you dance.
Gargamel from the Smurfs. I hate that.
Well, it's the same thing we were talking about earlier with labeling Milo a Nazi and a fascist and homophobic and promoting genocide. If you just say those words and define someone, you immediately put them in a nice box that you can attack.
Right.
And so by someone, this guy was right next to me fucking screaming it. Donald Trump, KKK, racist, sexist, anti-gay. This was hilarious. He saw a black guy coming. He starts yelling, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. I was like, oh, you son of a bitch. You fucking...
Well, they come up with this concept that the president is pro-hate. So then they go, hey, Trump, I'm against hate. And he goes, that's nice. So they build their straw man, and then they're attacking him and lighting him on fire. And the rest of us are going, I don't care that you're lighting a scarecrow on fire. You look fucking ridiculous.
Well, it's not empowering their cause to be exaggerating about his stances on things like gay rights or any of these other things. It's not. It's got problems. Europe has problems. They definitely do. And whenever you have people from one culture that immigrate into another culture and they're disenfranchised and poor, and they have really I'm going to keep going with it. And they also have a really restrictive, fucked up culture that they're coming from, and they want to impose that culture on the people that live in Germany or wherever, and they want women to start wearing long dresses, and they treat them like they're whores if they don't. That's all fucking real dangerous. They're from a different part of the world, and it's a part of the world that hasn't changed much in a long time. Yep. And that part of the world, I mean, you could call it culture, you can call it religious tradition, but whenever you're dealing with a part of the world that still has honor killings and female genital mutilation, and you don't let women drive, and women aren't allowed to vote, and you have this incredibly restrictive world that you're existing in, and then you bring that world somewhere else, you're going to have a culture clash, and you're seeing that. And this is if you want people to be free and you want people to have the ability to integrate into a more free culture like America is, you also have to be honest about what the consequences are. And you have to be honest about what kind of culture they're coming from. And as soon as you talk about that, you get labeled an Islamophobe. As soon as you talk about this incredibly restrictive, misogynistic culture that's based on an ancient series of rituals and beliefs, you become a racist and a bigot by talking about a reality.
Thanks very much, Joe. Very cool. Nailed a lot of things there, I feel. So that's all from me for now, people. Hope you found that interesting / entertaining. Maybe I've introduced you to the world of Joe Rogan. Who knows? But hope you're doing well out there, and I will catch you on the next one.